Meeting of the Amherst Township Trustees called to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I
I
pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Abraham?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Urick?
Yes.
And Kish is present as well. I have the January 24th, 2023 Amherst Township meeting minutes. The meeting was called to order at 7:03 p.m. by Urick. Pledge to the flag. Roll call. Abraham, Urick, and Kish were present. Lynch was absent. Also in attendance, Case Marsh, S. D. Ambrosio, J. Wilhelm, C. Neihart, K. Pajor, and also K. Pajor. 1/6/23, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham. Move to approve the January 10th, 2023 regular meeting minutes as read. All ayes. 1/7/23, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham. Move to approve that the December 2022 credit card account transaction detail has been reviewed per policy and is accepted as presented subject to investigation. All ayes. 1/8/23, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham. Move to approve the financial reports and payments of items on the payment listing, which includes ARPA fund expenditures as specified in documents provided by the fiscal officer. All ayes. 1/9/23, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham. Move to approve the corrected temporary annual appropriation measure for 2023 per Ohio Revised Code, Section 5705.38. All ayes. Under reports, for zoning, a full report for January will be given at the February 14th meeting. All zoning complaints have been taken care of. Under fire inspector, reported continuing to move through the township to get all the businesses inspected, currently at about 90% complete. Under road, park, and cemetery, road superintendent Marsh reported everything is going relatively smooth for the month. Small maintenance issues that have been handled. The Lorain County engineer was here today, and they have measured out the roads for chip and seal. An estimate will be available soon. Under senior services, NOPEC event sponsorship grant dollars have been received. NOPEC will be releasing the NEC community grant info, and applications will be accepted starting February 6th. Currently, our administrator is on jury duty for the next 4 days, so the offices will be closed. Phase 2, packets contained a resolution for authorization for the mini grant financial assistance from the Lorain County Stormwater District. 1/10/23, a motion by Urick, seconded by Abraham, for authorization of applications for Lorain County Stormwater District mini grant financial assistance for the storm sewer system improvement. All ayes. Complaints are being handled by the designated individual. Under new business, Fire Inspector Neihart brought forth the issue of a business moving in and out of the township. Possibly a form we can create for tracking new applications for the businesses that can then have a current fire inspection for occupancy. The City of Amherst charges $75 for the fire inspection. Possibly look to add this form to our website and discuss a fee to cover the costs. Trustee Urick noted that we will have to get the information together and then have the prosecutor's office look over the process. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, February 14th at 7 p.m. at the Amherst Township Hall. 1/11/23, a motion by Abraham, seconded by Urick, to adjourn at 7:30 p.m. All ayes.
Are there any changes or corrections to the January 24th meeting minutes? And if not, can I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Urick?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Lynch?
Yes.
Okay, then finally we got the financial reports. I was struggling with the printer. You're going to see a lot of voids on there because the printer was not being my friend tonight.
Carried.
Everything is pretty much normal bills, other than our fourth quarter payment for 2022 for the Amherst Fire Department is the largest chunk of that change. If anybody has any questions on any of the other, they're pretty much standard monthly bills.
Still waiting for the first half property tax, so.
Yeah, that'll
next
probably
month?
next month, yes. So then you'll notice your reports are different either as well. Some printed two-sided, some printed one-sided. But our revenue year to date is $148,522.66. And our expenditures year-to-date are $154,477.23.
Are there any questions on the bills or the financial reports?
I have none. Have we spent down the ARPA then to 33,000?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all the ARPA?
That's all of the, yes, ARPA.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion to approve the financial reports and the payments of the items on the payment listing, which includes the ARPA fund expenditures as specified in the documents by the fiscal officer.
I'll second that motion.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Number on that, Chris?
That's 2-2.
All right, anything else, Chris?
That is all I have.
All right, at this time, I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. I don't see any residents in the audience, but we do have representatives from the Amherst Fire Department here that are going to be discussing some of the investigation they've been doing on the replacement of some vehicles in their fleet. And so, Chief Wilhelm, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we put together a committee, you know, we're looking at 20 years on this tanker, and that's coming up here shortly. But we found out that due to the fact of supply and demand for almost everything in this country, fire trucks are no exception, and they're taking sometimes 2 to 3 years to build. But if we can get in now to ground level, we can lock down a price. So you're talking 15 to 18% a year increase. And some of those increases are coming up here in March or April. And if we can lock in a price, it's going to save quite a bit of money when you're looking at some places are 40 months to build. And that, if you wait, you're going to pay a whole lot more. So we're actually, Amherst is working on one right now too to get in. We're replacing one of our engines. And of course that's not quite 20 years old, but it's been rode hard, I should say, you know. And we think rather than to nickel dime us, we've already put a radiator in it. We've done numerous pump tune-ups and stuff on it, replace stuff, replace valves and all that. And it's time to where, you know, where do you stop and look for something that's, you know, a little bit better. So that's where we're at. We're coming to you with the package. These guys are basically the head. This is Timmy Gates and John Wallace, and they're basically heading the committees of looking into all this stuff. So I'll turn it over to them, and they can tell you what they found and what we're looking at.
So we sent Neil an email. We passed it out then. So you have a picture of a sample of the truck that we're looking at. We did our research, as in even having salespeople come in, talk to them, showed them what we have, told them what we would like to have on the new truck, went over specs. Some of the manufacturers, we even went to their facilities to look at trucks being built, to look at options that we might want or have, see the quality of the truck, how is it built, how good. Because we're spending a lot of money and we want a good return to make sure it's going to last another 20 years. So we've done a lot of homework on this, gone over with salespeople, back and forth. We want this, no, not that, and stuff. So we've gone back and forth on stuff. And as a committee of 5 people, going over the specs, going to look at these trucks, we've come up with a truck that we feel is going to be best fit for a purchase by you guys for the next 20 years. What we looked at is the current vehicles that we have, what things work, what things don't work, what do we need for space on these trucks, pumping capability, water hauling, all that stuff. And the Pierce truck that was in the email was the best fit. It gave us all the things that we were asking for, hopefully even looking for the future, what things we might need in the future, outlets for batteries, stuff like that, lights. So what we're presenting is a Pierce tanker. It's 3,000 gallons, so it can haul 3,000 gallons in its tank, dump into a pond, go back and fill up again, which is actually 500 gallons bigger than the current one that we have, because our tanker is one of the smaller ones in the county. Pretty much everybody is 3,000 gallons, so that's why we went for 3,000 gallons. Compartments gives us a little bit more space than what we currently have. We're able to put all the stuff that we currently have on the tanker into this vehicle. It'll give us capabilities with the hose loads and stuff like that, same as what we have. It will actually give us a little bit more light for on scene. We added some lights for scene light up and stuff like that. We put a front intake on it so that it can draft better than off the side. So we've put together what we feel is the best fit. The cost you can see there, the $1,157,000 is the same as a comparable truck, but not quite, we felt, as good of a fit for us. Your build time is 34 to 36 months, so basically 3 years. As far as Chris, with you, that is the price. We can hook you up with our salesperson, and they can maybe point you towards finance. You have the option of either paying for the truck when you sign the contract, and if you do that, you save 2%. So roughly you're saving about $23,000. I don't know what you're getting, leaving your money in the account. If you're better off waiting 3 years and pay for it at delivery time, you can finance it, whatever it costs for interest of finance. That, again, would give you that 2% discount, but that, again, is a finance issue. That's not any of our input. We're just giving you the price of the truck, asking if that works for you guys or not. And basically, to go forward, if you say yes, we will purchase this truck at that price. All that needs to be done then is Pierce will send a contract with Amherst Township, the cost, and then all the legal jargon and stuff like that. And you sign the contract stating, yes, we want that truck built. There's no PO needed or anything like that. It's just you're stating a contract so that in 3 years when the truck is built, that you will pay them and they will give you the truck. If you say, I'm not going to pay for it, then they're going to sell the truck to someone else. But it's basically a legal purchase of that you're buying the fire truck. That is the price in there. I'm trying to finish. We've been going back and forth with salespeople and stuff like that. They spec stuff out, we change it, no, we want this. So we're trying to finish making, because when you sign that purchase agreement, that's it. You know, all the options, the lights, the shelving, everything in there needs to be spelled out in that purchase agreement. So we want to make sure that the final price and all the options that are supposed to be on that truck are done, so that we don't have to come back later and say, well, we forgot that or we missed this. Hopefully we don't. Occasionally you do miss something, but we're trying to make sure everything is T's are crossed, I's are dotted, so that everything is there. So I wondered if you had any, the other thing with it too, some things with it, the city of Amherst is buying a Pierce also, so there's going to be familiarity between the vehicles. So if someone jumps into this fire truck, it's not different than that truck. You know, you don't have different manufacturers. There's going to be some familiarity, ease or maintenance that we take care of the trucks, what filters, stuff like that would be there. The Pierce truck is a little bit shorter than the Suffin truck, so it's more maneuverable. So if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, I'll open it up. David?
What are the bidding requirements on this?
As far as bidding, we could send things out to bid and the people bid on it, but to try to save and make it easier, the old way used to be state bid, where everything was named out price-wise and everything, and you go by state bid. But that's costing cities and townships more money because it's based on a percentage. Told Neil about, there's an agency called Sourcewell. It's similar to state bid, but it's a whole lot cheaper. It might even be, Neil was checking into it, might be free. You sign up for it once, and that's it. So Sourcewell would not have to go out for bid. You would choose Pierce, all the pricing is there. They spell out, this is your price, you sign the contract, you don't have to bid it out, which is the way the city of Amherst is going to go also. So that you don't have to advertise it and everything else. And it's a legal way. The county does it, states do it. It's basically like a co-op. Everything is spelled out. It's all above board. So,
Something bid on that, okay. I know there are bidding requirements for purchase, and since we are technically buying the truck, I think we would have to meet bidding requirements. That's number
with
one.
Sourcewell, you don't have to, because you're under the county prosecutor, correct?
Yeah,
So I worked with the gentleman from the county water team to buy boats, and they asked about, hey, it needs to go out to bid. Well, we went through Sourcewell. Sourcewell contacted the vendor, got all his prices. Sourcewell then said, here, county, here's your prices. This is how you can buy it through Sourcewell for this cost. You don't have to put it out for bid. So the county prosecutor said, Sourcewell, and the county has Sourcewell as a contract with them, so it is a legal way of doing it.
Also, keep in mind that when you go to replace some of your road equipment and stuff, that you can also use Sourcewell for that. So once you're in it, you're in it. And it's, some places it's dramatic savings on money where you don't have to tie money up into doing bidding, go out to bid, do all this stuff, and then you end up with 15 people in here throwing papers at each other because they've gone through all this stuff and certified it through, I think it was Michigan, was it?
It was either Michigan or Minnesota,
Right.
Wisconsin, one of those Midwestern states.
And they've opened it up to other states to jump on the board with it. Texas also has one, and it's open to other states. The old Ohio bidding process, or not the bidding process.
State bid.
The state bid, Ohio State wants to get away from that. So I'm assuming that down the road, they're gonna become a Sourcewell type, they're open to Sourcewell right now. The county does it, or Lorraine County does it, Amherst does it, so, like I said, down the road, when you wanna buy, a backhoe or something like that, it's a lot cheaper to go through Sourcewell than it is to do it the old-fashioned way.
Other thing to consider too is, Suffolk has already told us March 1st there's gonna be a price increase. Pierce told us beginning of May there's gonna be a price increase. If you go out to bid, you've gotta advertise, there's gotta be time for openings. So the longer you wait, you're gonna end up having another price increase, which takes the price and goes up whatever, 1%, 4%, whatever they do, because everything you buy, including fire stuff, every couple months, they're increasing prices because it's the way the economy is. So if you go out to bid, you might end up having to pay even more because of the time.
what if you went out and got a pumper out of stock instead of having a
There's
custom
not,
built?
that isn't there anymore.
It's not an option anymore. If they build something to show, 90% of the time, it's gone before it even finishes the line. Somebody buys it, but then they make an agreement with them that they take it to a show. That's how that works. There's a big show coming up here in Indianapolis, and I guarantee you that probably 95% of the pumpers and ladders that they have there to show, they're already spoken for and sold because they don't have the capital to do that anymore, these places. That's why the price is driven. I never in my life thought I'd see the day that a pumper would cost $1 million. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. And we're not the only ones. Everybody around us, everybody in this United States that's buying a truck, they're all suffering the same thing.
Because build times are constantly going up.
Yeah.
That's why, Suffolk called and said, hey, we need an answer because we can't build as many trucks as we're selling. So they have to do something, and everybody's in that same boat. Everybody's build time is slowly going up. And then Neil asked about, well, what do we do with the other tanker that we currently have?
You make money on it.
There's the option of putting it on state or gov deals and selling it that way. And then gov deals is going to take their portion out of it too. You can stick it on Facebook or something. You can stick it on, sell it to not Gander Mountain, Brendel Mountain. There are companies out there that will buy old fire trucks and then sell them to somebody else.
We have to go through procedures to dispose of township property, just like I suppose the city does. And
Yes.
it's bid, and it's got to be put out through appropriate entity to be bid. And if we're gonna go through a third party, then
Well-
it has to be approved or whatever on that, so that, it complies with the law.
Overland
But,
just got a brand-new aerial. It cost them almost $2 million. Okay? They took their old aerial, which they had for 25 years, it was in service, they sold it for $157,000. That's what they got for it. So, there's certain items out there you can make money on. A tanker is one of them. There's probably 2 or 3 places right here in local that would want it and be willing to bid, on it.
So you might be able to sell it to another city,
Yeah.
township, and just have to do your appropriations thing, but you wouldn't be paying a third party. You would just be selling it from this township to that township.
Correct. And because we're not doing it on some type of a grant or something, that piece of equipment can be sold as a fire truck. Now, a lot of times when you get a grant to replace something, you can't resell it as a fire truck. It's got to be sold to a farmer or something, so. But this truck can be. Because
Any questions,
you own
David?
it, the city of Amherst doesn't own it.
David?
You're gonna recoup some of your money.
But how much?
I
10% of
have
the
no-
price?
I can't
I don't
guarantee
have a
that.
crystal ball.
That's in 3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't have any idea. If we got 110,000, be like 10% of the price is what you're saying.
yeah. Like I said, that's the way of the world right now today, that everything's, look at it, how much, did you ever think you'd pay $8 for a dozen eggs in your life? I didn't either,
$3 for a candy bar?
Yeah, yeah, but that's where we're at.
Any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, now, Tim, in this case, what Pierce needs is just an acceptance that we plan on buying that vehicle, but if something falls through, we're not on the hook for anything. I mean, I don't expect that to be the case. I expect we'd be buying it. I did look, Pierce is both on the Ohio State bid and also with Sourcewell. I did check that. I also checked the statute. I haven't verified it with the prosecutors. I shared with you, I intend to do that. But it does appear the statute, and I never realized this, says, yes, we can work with other states. We just haven't done that here at our township in the past. And so we'd have to see, is there that advantage that there's that price difference going with Sourcewell versus state of Ohio? I know you said there is, and maybe there is. If it's identical and one's lower cost, of course we're going to do that. It looks like signing up for Sourcewell is fairly easy, and Chris, I would have you do that as the financial person. I didn't log on, and I didn't call the phone number yet, but it looked pretty simple in what they had going on there. But is that the case? We just need to say yes. I mean, obviously you guys are telling us we're going to have to do it, so that's a yes. I just want to know, what are we committing to? If, let's say, 3 years from now, this is a different board. Are they going to be in any issue?
Well, if you said yes tonight, we would go to the salesperson that we've been talking to from Pierce and say, yes, the Amherst Township is going to buy a truck. We would, like I said, finish up those last little questions on the things, and he would print off 1 or 3 page, whatever it is, proposal with the price, delivery time, all that legal jargon at the bottom then. I don't know if it's one signature or if all 3 would sign or financial, whatever, but somebody signs at the bottom, and like I said, basically then, we agreed in 3 years when the truck is delivered, built to these specifications, you're going to pay this price. And so even if it was a different board, you guys said, yes, we're doing it, and the people that come in afterwards have to abide by that purchase price and that.
But that price, what I'm saying is, what if that board says, we're not getting the truck?
Well, then you would basically a breach of contract.
That's what I mean, but is it going to be, you said earlier, they would just sell it to someone else? Or are they going to come after the township as far as some litigation?
That I am not 100% sure on. I haven't heard of someone, usually if someone wants to make it, wants to move forward, because they know they need to do it, so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to get it anyway, and you guys have looked at, I think you said there were 4 different manufacturers, and the price range, you're basically in the same price range no matter what you do.
I can forward to you the latest proposal that he gave. Like I said, there's a price on there, but there was still some things left. And if you want, you could read through that and see if it answers your question that you're asking, or you could ask the salesperson I can get hold of.
Yeah, that'd probably help if you email that, Tim. Again, to me, we're going to have to get it. I don't see where the pricing's varying that much, based on what you provided to us. The real issue is this long lead time, since there is no build to stock, it's all build to order, and making that commitment, 3 years prior to the need. And I'm not sure with that, other than when we get close, how we transition from, here's the new vehicle coming in, now we can put the other one up for sale. I don't know if you guys have storage room there, if because for a period of time there's going to be 2 vehicles. I'd hate to just stick it out in the yard here. Obviously there's room, but then now you've got a truck exposed, and who knows what can go on with the shenanigans and damage in that time.
I'm sure we can work something out, but there is going to be that transition time because we have to put brackets and stuff on the new one, and
you're going to take all the equipment off.
Take the equipment off the one, put it on the
Right.
other, and we need to do, at the end, it needs to be done quickly because, the amount of time that one is out of service because you're taking stuff off and putting on, you try to make that as least amount of time as possible, but we have to mount things, put radios in it and stuff, so, but yes.
Okay. And the one you've specified does have the hydraulic lift on the pond?
Yes.
Okay.
And once they call us, hey, that's in the contract, you have like 7 or 14 days from when they call you to go do your inspection and take delivery of it. So when they make the phone call, we can always, however you want to sell your truck, get pictures of it, and you can start advertising that and say, will be sold when taken out of service, stated like that. And that way you can start the process so that
People can
as
look
soon
at
as
it.
it's taken off, stripped, it's ready to go.
Okay.
It's not sitting outside waiting to be sold.
So what specifically do you need this evening?
I would say an answer from you guys saying, yes, move forward with this, and we will get with the salesperson, finish those last little spec things. He will type up that proposal, and I can get it forward to you, to Chris, whoever, so that somebody can sign it at the bottom saying, yes, we're going to enter into this agreement.
Okay, and you've zeroed in, then it's definitely going to be Pierce.
As far as
I know when I
that's
last
best
talked,
we
you were
feel
still up
fits
in
the
the air.
bill, best price, options,
Okay.
stuff that they're putting onto it. There was a couple extra things that they put into the truck that needed to be put in on the truck when it's delivered, so it's already going to have it. So, yes, the committee unanimously decided that is the truck that's going to best be the return.
But it could be going slightly higher than the 1.2 million roughly?
I would hope not, but I initially gave you a price, and then we met as a committee, and we also, one thing that we added to all the trucks with the salespeople was, everybody nowadays pretty much has airbags in their car. Fire trucks don't have it, but they are going that way. It was an option with a couple of the manufacturers, so we added that. So the initial price that the chief spoke with you, and I spoke with you that day, it had gone up because we added some of these safety features to the truck too.
That's probably a good idea. I remember testing out the existing tanker, and you were there, you were much younger at that time, and driving down those gravel roads at the speed you guys were going. I wasn't real comfortable, and all I saw was that big window.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, there's another thing too along with that. Just because they put you in line and they tell you 36 months, things can happen, they can hire some more people,
Someone could cancel an order, but
cancel an
you
order,
probably-
now you move up. So,
Yeah, the 34 to 36 months they're given is, I think they're like, make you happy when it's done a couple months earlier.
yeah.
And then like, as far as the Pierce versus other manufacturers, we thought it fit our needs and your needs best. The overall length, overall width was smaller, So getting into the trailer parks and some smaller areas in the township. Frame size, Pierce uses a 13-inch frame rail. The truck is 5,000 or something, isn't it?
I think 60 to 70,000 pounds
Yeah.
of weight.
So the other manufacturers were using 10-inch frame rails.
Okay.
And just the quality, workmanship. When the tanker goes out, it does a lot of work, hauling a lot of water. The one we have now has worked for us, and it's just unfortunately getting to be the end of life.
It's getting tired, but it's still operable.
Yes.
It's still a good truck, but it's,
For a smaller
we've
department.
put, maintenance-wise, we've put a lot of money into that
How do you rate the truck, by miles or hours?
truck.
Both.
You do that, also, you do it by lifespan. I think I told you guys it's gonna be 20 years now. What comes into play there is the amount of times that's taken out and run, too. 25 years ago, that truck maybe would go out 3 times a month. Now, it's 3 times a week. So, you have to kind of, the wear factor on stuff and all that, then that comes into play. It's just like your personal vehicle. You're not going to drive that for 70 years, are you?
I think one of the things, if you don't use something, a vehicle, one of the things that goes are the rubber items, the hoses, the belts, the tires.
Yeah, that too.
Because after 25 years, they're gonna start to dry rot.
Yeah.
Tires have been put on, tires have been changed over the years,
Yep.
and that weight, as John said, is on that truck 24/7.
It sits there.
It's not a
And
dump truck that
yeah,
gets emptied, it's,
right. With all that weight on it, 2,500 gallons of water, day in, day out, sitting on that frame. So, and then when you take it out on the road, you're flexing the frame, and all that comes into play. Like I said, the more calls you have, the more time you use that thing, there's a little more wear on it and tear on it. So it's not like it was 25 years ago.
and the price isn't gonna go down every month, every couple of months, it's gonna go up.
It's gonna go up. Yeah, everything that's got fire on it goes up. I can give you a good example. Our turnout gear used to cost us $900. Now it's $2,500. And I gotta put guys 2 complete sets of turnout gear because of the fire factor that we're dealing with, just like what happened down there, where is it? With all the train, all that stuff burning from that train. Those guys took their gear off in their station, they went to wash it, it fell apart. Literally fell apart.
How about, will this work for you, Tim? Because, it's difficult. I know we've had multiple conversations. I didn't speak with John, but between Brandon Demakia and Chief Wilhelm and you on this, but, it's still confusing to me. How do I prepare something for the rest of the board here ahead of time? So just so we can formalize it, and I want to hear my colleagues up here, if we had a motion to authorize the Amherst Fire Department to specify a new 3,000-gallon Pierce tanker and reserve a spot in the production schedule with expected delivery of 34 to 36 months at an estimated cost of $1.2 million. Just around, does that work so
Yes.
that you can then go back and talk with them?
Yes.
That'll give us time to have the discussion. I told you I still want to talk with the prosecutor, even though all the research appears that we can go also with Sourcewell. And as I stated, I know some of the other trucks I didn't see on Ohio State bid. Pierce was there. It'd be interesting once you have, I think theirs are just the basic, and then they do list some options you can select and put on there. What is the major differential? And if there is, we'll just get signed up. We probably should sign up for Sourcewell anyway. I'm sure the prosecutor's going to say yes, since I saw the Board of Commissioners has already signed up. For Dave and Denny, the only township I saw that's a member of Sourcewell is Columbia Township. I don't know why this hasn't been discussed between the Community Alliance meeting or Lorraine County Township Association in the past. I do know Community Alliance quite a few years ago had an organization in from a different state that was, talking about trying to get this consortium together, but it never really took off. So maybe this is something similar or the result of that, but it wasn't called Sourcewell. I can't recall the name, but it was kind of taking the states here in the Midwest and pulling them together, but it was like a private purchasing group trying to do this to make it like our state bid, to make it easier for these build-to-order type things, and it's, that's where you start soliciting proposals first before you even go out for bids, and it just, it drags this out. But if that works, I'm going to make that motion then to authorize the Amherst Fire Department to specify a new 3,000-gallon Pierce tanker and reserve a spot in the production schedule with expected delivery of 34 to 36 months and an estimated cost of $1.2 million. That'll be my motion.
We're going to have to go over that again. Wait. I need the motion. Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't write that as if someone else would be reading it.
That's okay, we're getting there, 3,000.
And then Neil, if you could find out with Chris, if the paying, either financing it or paying it in full when you sign the contract is beneficial for you, or if it's more beneficial to wait till the delivery date and pay at that time. That's up to you guys. I just need to let them know which way you want to do it.
Yeah, at 2% right now, who knows what's happening with rates? At 2% reduction right now, we're better off not
That's fine.
to pay it up front.
I believe the city's probably gonna do the same thing, so.
If you would have asked us a year ago, it might have been a different story, but
Is it Pierre?
Pierce,
Pierce, thank you.
kind of like your ear.
Pierce, something tow, T-O-W. Trailblades?
Tanker.
Take.
And reserve a spot in the production schedule with expected delivery of 34 to 36 months,
At an estimated cost of...
1.2 million. I just rounded up.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have...
You got a motion, you don't have I don't think you have a
Correct. No,
second yet.
No, hey, Denny started, but...
I seconded.
Discussion's done.
I think so.
Okay, Lynch,
Yes.
Abraham,
Yes.
Keurig.
Yes.
Okay, and
Okay,
we'll
then.
have a lot more discussion as far as, getting rid of the old one and what we've got to do on this as we move forward, but this at least gets you started.
We can even ask around too. Because there had been some interest in it.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, it's just I don't know if anyone can commit, this soon, and obviously you got to use it for the next
Right.
few years too.
I wanted to wait and get your answer first, and then I was going to talk to Russ, because like I said, they were Scarborough from their township, because that way it gives them time to plan ahead 3 years. Where does that fit in their financial if they want that route?
Right.
So,
I appreciate that, Tim.
So once this is built, how much prep work is going to have to be done? Are we going to have to add a bunch of things to it afterwards, or
Or just the equipment that we take off the old one.
we shouldn't have to buy that?
You're not buying anything more.
That's what he said, Dave. They'll have the hoses, they have the radios, they got ladders,
I just put
I
in a
know there were
grant.
outfitting fees on the last one, there were fees after we got
So all that's done. The truck is complete.
You guys buy the truck, and then we outfit the appliances and stuff that goes on
I
it.
just put in a grant for 5,000 feet of new 5-inch hose and for other hose. And I also have stuff for the state under grant, so we're good to go. We got all fairly new equipment on that truck, some of the older stuff for water settle. It'll just get transferred from the old truck to the new truck.
Yeah, and as I shared, just, David, so you're aware too, on the funding, and for Chris too, because this had come up before, we said we had to build up that reserve balance. And now we're at the point where what's coming in is what's going out. And we just had a $43,000 payment to the city. But, we're pretty much just treading water, but we built up that reserve to pay for the truck, knowing in 20 years, which is what was planned before, there may have to be a replacement. And then we know in the future, that it's going to tip. We're going to reach a point where we're going to be spending more than we're taking in, and we'll start digging in. There'll still be residual reserves left. But at that time, the township will have, time to plan, to go back to the voters and present their case. But obviously, we don't need that right now. Okay. Well, if there's anything else, all right, I thank you guys for
I
everything
appreciate your
you've done.
time and thought. Thank you.
All right, we'll be talking.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
we're gonna get out of here. We got guys working back at the station.
Yeah.
Make sure they're still working.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming
Thank you.
tonight.
Nice to meet you.
Take care. Good job, Tim.
Okay, we're going to move on to the correspondence. Chris?
I have none.
Okay, David?
Don't have anything with me. I did want to let you know I did receive an email from Megan Moore.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded us, I believe you got a copy of it
Yep.
also.
Yeah, I put it down under solid waste. So.
Yeah, remind that it's time to look over what we want from a vendor as far as services on the solid waste pickup, what we as a township want. I know we asked for free pickup at the township. We asked for dumpsters for the dumpster events.
Yeah. What I'm gonna do-
Anything else we can think of right now?
Yeah, what I'd suggest, David, just so that it's clear to anybody watching this, is that the township solicits bids for the collection, the residential curbside pickup of both the waste and recyclables. And it's every 5 years. The last agreement, our resolution was in January of 2019, so that will sunset here in 2024. And so that's where the attorney that represents the Solid Waste Consortium, which is the group of Lorraine County townships, villages, and cities that are part of that consortium, she wants to get started, and David mentioned Megan Moore, in putting together the solicitation of these bids. So what they term Exhibit E is where each community puts in what they desire that's specific. What I would suggest, David, which would be helpful for us, if you can get the Exhibit E for every member of the consortium, so we can use those to compare, to decide if we make any changes. And Kevin, a lot of this falls on you as far as the yard itself, and you're aware of the dumpsters we get for dumpster days coming in here. But let's look at Exhibit E, and you might also, and this is going to come up separately, David, I had this under solid waste also. You'll see Kevin brought in the latest EPA compliance report for the Class 4 composting and yard waste recycling we've got here at the township. I don't know if that's something that can be included or not. I know it predominantly is with the curbside, but I also know that two of the bidders in the past, both being Republic and Rumpke, I don't know about Kimball, they've actually attempted to put in yard waste recycling in Lorraine County, with location. As a matter of fact, one of the locations was going to be right across from our township, and we turned that down because of the close proximity to residents, and that would have required rezoning that the township was not agreeable to. But we've already got a small operation there that Kevin and the guys take care of. Perhaps that's something in discussions with the attorneys and also our solid waste district, there might be some benefits in including that. In addition to the other options, and I know this has been assigned to you to start looking at this because that grinding and disposal operation is getting very expensive. Okay? But if you can bring all of those Exhibit E's, and especially if perhaps Megan can email them to you so they could be emailed around to everyone else to take a look at them and compare them. And we've got some time to get back with her, too. It wasn't something she needed
No,
immediately.
I think she wanted it by April.
Yes, but yeah, and we'd like to get it to her well before that. But see if she can send every Exhibit E, and then we can just do the comparisons from there, okay? Was there anything else, David?
No.
Okay,
No.
Denny?
No.
Okay, I've got in your packet, there is a communication, it's an email from Reese Dutton on Lorraine County Community Development, but it's essentially the Turk schedule. This is a tax incentive review council agenda, and there is one on here for Hampshire Farms on Tuesday, March 21st at the County Administration Building, 4th floor, room A at 10:40 a.m. I know in the past the county asked us to essentially designate an individual for any area where they have a TIF in place and a tax incremental financing, but I don't recall that happening for this one. I looked through my resolutions and didn't have any. It could have been a motion, but I suspect they never asked for one. But that will be occurring. This will include, obviously, at that meeting in the county, which is a county TIF. That TIF the county put in for the sanitary sewers, extending along Oberlin Road with that development, in addition to the main lines going through the development. But you will have, it's an Amherst exempted village school district, so there'll be a representative from the schools, I assume it'll be their treasurer, a representative from joint vocational school, and then the township to vote on whether that TIF continues. And obviously it's going to, since it's in the early years, but I don't know if there's one individual that we should nominate to vote on that. You all can attend the meeting. It's a public meeting. So what's the board's pleasure? Is there anybody have a dying desire to be the decision maker? Well, if not,
We go there and we.
Who's gonna go?
We vote at all. I'm thinking that it's just, go there and you raise any concerns.
Okay. Do you have any concerns in the event I go and you don't?
Right now, I just, where it is in the process, that's all.
Okay.
It should be the time to get your
All right.
totals.
Well, put it on your schedule. That's Tuesday, March 21st. I know in the past they sometimes get behind schedule. You always hope you're either the first one in the day or the one right after lunch, but unfortunately ours is right in the middle of the day, so you may show up at 10:30 and find out you're not on till 11 o'clock.
So you are gonna go?
I'm going to go, yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to be there. If nothing else, this is one, since it was a 10-year, 75% TIF, where 75% of the property taxes are redirected to the infrastructure the county put in, is that probably more important. That's one we had no choice in whatsoever. You're going to see later in the agenda, we've got one to vote on where we do have a choice. Okay, we'll move on then to reports. Denny, I don't know if there's anything for ambulance.
No, nothing for ambulance.
Okay, zoning, Sam?
1132K is finally, you can close the book on that one, the shed, you paid the permit.
It got moved in through the fence
Got
and
moved,
fence? Great.
and he paid for his permit. You guys have the printouts. You can see in January, we had a total of 6 permits, 1 new house. In February so far, 1 new house, a total of 5 permits. I just got a complaint here. I guess you saw it. Cobblestone, somebody has a car parked in the street with no tags, and it's been there for quite a while. Is that a sheriff thing, or is that us?
Parked in a right-of-way.
Parked in the
Car, if
street.
you park more than 72 hours,
Said it's been there for
um,
a while.
you may want to
2
talk to the
months.
sheriff. Yeah.
That's what I should call, or they should call? I mean, I guess I could call. It's been there 2 months supposedly. In the
You got a
street.
tow truck? Do you have a tow truck?
No?
Well, you're not gonna be towing it. It needs to be towed. So, yeah, I'll talk to them, I guess.
Sheriff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost have to, because I assume since the individual that logged the complaint has indicated the home's vacated, so I assume that, and they show the owner's name, I assume that the owner of the vehicle was also the owner of the house, and they just left the vehicle. You know, we don't know the details, but the sheriff can get the vehicle out of there. You know, probably end up down on Oberlin Road here at their favorite tow place.
Sorry.
I did drive by there today, and it definitely has flat tires, and
Yeah,
it looks pretty undrivable.
yeah, they'll be able to take care of it, and they've got agreements with the various tow services. So, and I mean, probably your easiest thing is to call Brandon, and you have his contact information? Okay, Sam. And you said the new home was on,
I believe one was on Fowl Road, and the other one was Hampshire Farms.
We're on Fowl Road.
Oh, gosh. Linda knows the area better than I do. Where on Fowl Road was that new house?
It-
9823, is that so?
9380, 9384.
there's only a
down
short
there.
section, that's township, David.
I know, that's what I say. I'm trying to figure out where it would be.
There was a big farm. I forget how many acres she had, 50 acres, and she's parceling it
Right,
off. It's going to be almost down to Albrecht,
Yeah.
Fowl and Albrecht, and then she is going to be parceling off some properties there on Albrecht also.
Yeah, you've probably seen those large lots down there.
So I have a question for minute purpose. Sam was going to report out on January, but now you included the part of February, so I don't know what to write.
Why don't I don't either.
I just wanted to,
Well, it's just, in this case, since you're in the beginning, I'm just marking on my schedule, which will be on the next agenda, is 2 new homes, February year-to-date. You know, I like, obviously with the whole spreadsheet Sam has here, you see also the financials in terms of the funding, but, you know, I don't record every permit he gets for a fence or, you know, accessory building or anything else. I just record the new homes, Chris.
So I'll continue to just do it the first meeting of every month, and wherever it lands, it lands?
You can do that. It's,
Unless you want, because I mean,
I have no
do it the
issue
next
with you
meeting.
here at both, but you gotta do it, you know, at least once a month.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we only have 1 or 2 permits, we'll see.
Any other questions for Sam? Have you had anything come up for the zoning commission or anything? Okay.
Yes, sir.
But I see that the development here, the sandstone development, they're doing an awful lot of work there, and, you know, especially if you go up the turnpike, you'll see the work being done, the earthwork for the redwood section, seems to be where most of the activity is. They did get one of the detention ponds constructed. Okay. All right, any other questions for Sam?
No?
All right, thanks, Sam. Okay, fire prevention officer's not here, but we know we have the fire department here. Roads, parks, and cemetery, Superintendent Smarsh.
We've been working on potholes, ditch cleaning. Linda and I have worked on the mini grant. We have that just about completely complete. I have yet to get the pictures developed. Other than that, which I meant to do today, but I got too busy. They will be done tomorrow. The compost is it's possible that it was completed today, but they had a breakdown. It would have been done 2 weeks ago, but they had a couple of major breakdowns.
What was that, Kevin?
The compost.
Okay.
If it hadn't gotten completed this evening, then it definitely will be tomorrow morning. And I was in touch with Joe Books with Brownhelm Township. And we did, between the city of Amherst and what we had, we were able to set him up and get that all taken care of for the, hopefully for the inspection tomorrow.
Okay, good.
We got our intersections cleaned up, swept up, blown off. We didn't have any major fixes to do with ours, but hopefully that all goes well.
Right, I appreciate it. And just so that the rest of the board's aware of this, Kevin, is that Norfolk Southern, right now, it's our understanding, is going to have an inspector out inspecting the 5 crossings that are included in the railroad quiet zone, going from Brownhelm Township through Amherst, the city of Amherst, Amherst Township, Elyria Township, and the city of Elyria tomorrow. And there were some, it actually was a railroad, either railroad employees or a railroad contractor, but someone doing work for the railroad actually damaged some of the bollards or delineators, whatever term you want to use, out at the Cooper Foster Park crossing. The road superintendent was actually there when it occurred, and individual was probably somewhat gruff and didn't seem inclined to replace them or take care of them, and it just caused some issues. So that's a separate issue Brownhelm would have to deal with, but the request was, since we had taken some off at Dewey with the large truck turn radius, the sharp turn radius coming in, and we didn't need that full length, is Kevin went over and worked a swap. They could take the extra delineators we had, but they'll purchase new to get us, because obviously there's going to be times in the future you'll have to do maintenance, and it'd be nice to have some right here ready to put on versus waiting till they come in. So I appreciate you getting that done in short order, so when the inspector goes out, they're going to see everything's in compliance at all the crossings. And so we're hoping once we get that done, that Norfolk Southern is going to approve the quiet zone. And I gave to Denny this evening a document that the city of Amherst put together. This has been a back and forth as to who has to sign as the authority in the quiet zone. And first, we were under the impression that every community involved, including the county engineer, because the West Ridge crossing, it's one side's a county road, the other side's city of Elyria road, and it's in Elyria Township, so it gets complicated who signs it. And initially, the consultant said, nope, we only need the city of Amherst one authority, but since then, Norfolk Southern has now said, no, we're going to require every crossing that's in there. So the city of Amherst put together a document. Denny's going to get the final signatures, get it back to the mayor's office so that can be sent off to Norfolk Southern to try and wrap this up. The individual who is actually in Syracuse, New York for Norfolk Southern that's responsible for these has indicated that once this gets done, he said it should be pretty simple. He believes, based on looking at photos and the documentation, that we've met all the requirements, but they've got to physically come out and inspect also. And they will notify their engineers of when the quiet zone is complete. So we still need the mayor of Elyria, county engineer and Brownhelm Township trustees to sign, and we'll be all set. So I appreciate what you did there, Kevin, to get that done. So, I'd hate to have that thing stick out and that was relatively recent, that they had done that damage. Within the last, not more than 2 months, I think it was in January that they did the damage. Okay? Are there any other questions for Kevin? Okay. Senior Services Township Administrator, Linda Ashley.
Just been working a lot with Sam, trying to get the conditional uses sent out for this year and get some of the public hearing records all straightened around. Working on grants with Kevin for the mini grants and the NOPEC NEC grant that we received. I do have a lot of little housekeeping that I'm going to try to get as soon as this other stuff gets organized, filed away. And the housekeeping, I mean by the wireless access points that we were told by Otarma to do, which was last year, that I haven't gotten a chance to do. Just some updating of things that need to be done here, some computer work as far as taking some of the old computer information off and putting them on flash drives for safekeeping, so I'm not bogging my computer down with records from 2014, and so just kind of that kind of fun stuff.
And I know you and Georgiana have already spoken regarding Otarma and their cybersecurity and what more additional training they had available when we were down at the OTA there. I did not go to the cybersecurity, she did, but it didn't fit in the schedule I was doing. But she said ultimately, most of this you guys have already been covering and doing as best you can.
We still have a lot of things that we need to, button up and finish.
Every year it's going to keep getting more.
And it kind of keeps getting put on the back burner because we have more important priorities that we have to deal with. And being a small staff, we have to prioritize.
Okay. Well, I just realized I skipped something on roads. So I'm going to go back, and Chris, I'll let you decide how you adjust the order in the minutes, but there was also, if you recall, for the trustees, is the Lorraine County engineer put out if we were going to participate in the county engineer's bid for chip and seal roads this year. And this year we are, and Kevin has gotten estimates for Broadway, Tenney, and Taylor. And he actually, and I appreciate, he got the estimates both ways. So one was if we did a chip and seal, which is just under $12,000 for those 3 roads. Those 3 roads encompass just under, a little over 6,600 square yards of roadway and about definitely almost 3,500 feet in length of roadway. The estimates for if we did a typical mill and resurface is actually a hair over $130,000. So you're looking at a differential between $12,000 and $130,000, and that's pretty much what we've seen before. The chip and seal is only about 10% of the cost versus the mill and resurface. We've already looked at the life cycle costs. We know on chip and seal, even the other roads, it depends upon the load limits of the vehicles, the amount of traffic you're getting. In this case, though, we usually, with the chip and seal, get about 6 years. We know we're getting 12 to 15 with the others. Well, this is pretty much a no-brainer as far as doing the chip and seal from the life cycle costs and the current costs and managing our finances. Obviously, if we tried to do $130,000, we wouldn't be doing it. At least not this year. We'd have to, as we've done with other projects, accumulate those funds. These are not highly traveled roads. They're very low-speed roads. So with that being the case, my opinion, we go with chip and seal. I hope the trustees agree. We did get those resurfaced when we last did them, but the only reason we were able to do that is we worked with a county engineer when they were installing the sewers there. And it made it very difficult for the residents at the time. I know some have changed over because they had to live a year with a road with lateral cuts that were just filled with stone. We didn't even have it resurfaced. But it's now going to be chip and seal. It'll be slightly different than what they're used to. Hopefully we get a good bid and a good contractor that does a good job for them down there. These are also, as you guys are aware, narrower roads than we typically have. You're only talking 17 to 18 feet wide. But again, with the lower speed traffic, that hasn't proved to be an issue in terms of motor vehicle incidents. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to authorize participation Lorraine County Engineers 2023 chip and seal bid as this resolution is prepared, and this will be for Broadway, Tenney, and Taylor at just under $12,000.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, Chris?
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes. What's that, 2-4?
2-4.
Sorry about that, Kevin. I went right by it.
Oh, I had it right in front of me and I didn't say so.
Okay, the Phase 2 we typically cover on the second meeting of the month, but we've already, you guys passed the resolution authorizing the application for the mini grant. Kevin and Linda have already reported they're putting together 2 applications with the priority. When we receive the MOU from the county, hoping that at least one, preferably both, are approved, I'm expecting that won't be until the March time frame that we hear from them. So we'll go ahead. I've got a placeholder in the agenda to take care of that. And I don't know if it was mentioned at the last meeting, we had January 31st was a deadline to turn in the application for the main stormwater grant, and I did turn that in. I believe I sent an email out with everyone with that document. The Stormwater Advisory Committee will be meeting this Thursday. I believe it's at 5 o'clock in the 4th floor of the County Administration Building. I'm going to try and attend that meeting because they will be reviewing some of those applications to see, how we score in that. Hopefully we get it approved. I hope they move quickly because the Lorraine County Township Association meeting is that same night, and it's in Wellington Township. So, I'm going to have to decide I'm either leaving one early or attending one meeting late. So, and I don't know which one. So I'm hoping they handle the grant information if they keep that on their agenda first. But if you guys are so inclined to attend that Stormwater Advisory Committee meeting, it's, company would be appreciated. Okay, we'll move on to complaints. Sam already talked about taking the one off there on K Drive. The others, there's the 2 which I've left on there, but I don't think this is going to be an issue anymore. This was the complaint about grinding dust and whatnot at the sandstone development. There's only one left there, and I don't know, Sam, if there's anything that can be done there. This was the, other than making sure they're in compliance, this is the operation at the intersection of Oberlin Road, Middle Ridge, and Hidden Valley Drive on the northwest corner.
How do you say his name? Quandro?
Corondo.
Yeah.
Quandro. Yeah. I've been actually compiling a file, taking some pictures. We're going to have to revisit him.
Okay.
We sent him a letter.
And that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
See
By
what
the
they
way,
can do.
while we're thinking of it, the one down the street that you texted me, he never called me.
Okay. He texted me Sunday. I didn't even bother to send it to you
I
anymore,
don't know what to say.
because
I think he just likes texting you. I don't-
I told him he needs to contact the zoning inspector, but I haven't seen anything that he's provided now that's would be a non-compliance. I mean, it's a business zone. It's been there a long time. You're aware of some of the other specifics of who sold the property and who else has worked there, and so now I just think it's someone that's going to continue to complain about it, but there's nothing wrong that we've seen. I'm not driving down there anymore. Driven down there many times and never saw an issue.
Put it on me. Tell them I drove by, I think it's fine.
I did. I didn't even
Don't have a
respond to
problem.
this one. I don't know how many times I have to send something to contact the zoning inspector, and you've left messages, so I'm just going to let it go, okay? And you already addressed the new complaint.
Which one was that one?
The new complaint was the one with the vehicle at the abandoned home.
Yeah.
Or you're asking, which one are you asking about here, David?
You were just talking about.
Well, the one we were just talking about isn't on there. This is a complaint an individual has in regards to the Alpha Dog operation. And if you want to know...
Oh, that, right there in Middle Ridge.
Yeah, if you want more details, I'd suggest you speak with Sam as to what's going on with that. Okay, there has been no official written complaint, and that was explained also because it started out with somebody they sent it in, I believe, through the website, Chris, and I've talked with the gentleman multiple times, I've observed it, and it finally got to the point where I realized this has to be in writing. It was going in all different directions. Every time I had a discussion with him was a new issue. I sent all that information over to Sam and made it clear that since he believes there's violations, he needs to discuss it with Sam. He's talked about this individual has contacted multiple other federal agencies that are going to get involved, I guess. So, I don't know what the involvement is. Okay? All right, under unfinished business, solid waste, David, you've already mentioned, Exhibit E. Kevin's already provided the EPA compliance report on the yard waste and composting operation. You know you've got work to do on that, so I don't think there's anything more to discuss on this. And you're going to get all the Exhibit Es from the legal representative for the consortium. So we'll move on then. As far as the NOPEC grant, you do have in your packet a resolution authorizing all actions necessary to accept the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council NOPEC 2023 Energized Community Grant. I'm going to make that motion to bring it to the floor and look for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we did receive the notification on this grant. I've emailed all that information to you. Linda and Kevin will actually be working on this in the future, but all this resolution's doing is accepting the award. There is a grant agreement that we need to approve. It's pretty much the same one we've approved in the past, other than it's now for 2023. We do have 2 years to use the funds that are available. The funds that are available are based on the number of Amherst Township residential customers that are part of NOPEC in their grant and gas utility. So based on that, this grant award this year is $12,458, just so you understand the scope on this. So the resolution accepts the grant. It also authorizes who can sign the agreement. So the Township Board of Trustees finds and determines that it is in the best interest of the township to accept the NEC grants for 2023, to enter into the attached grant agreement, authorize the chairman or president to sign and execute any documents or amendments of the grant agreement with NOPEC Incorporated, which might be required to receive the approximate $12,458 of the 2023 NEC grant funds. The rest is pretty much boilerplate. So Chris, we will need a certified resolution for this, and I'll go ahead and sign the document so that you have it. Okay? Yeah, it's just got the one place, so I'll sign your original there. Okay?
Okay.
Did you call roll call on that?
Not yet.
Not
I
yet.
didn't think so.
If y'all were done.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call,
Lynch?
Chris. Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
2523,
Yes, sir.
And Linda, you'll get a complete copy of the certified and the signed grant agreement. Okay, we'll move on to the new business. And I guess the key item on there, there's a couple of them, is we've already discussed the railroad quiet zone investigation and where that stands. And the gentleman I mentioned in Syracuse with Norfolk Southern is Lou Frangella, and he's been very helpful in moving this along. So hopefully we can soon get fewer train horns going. I don't know, it seems like there's been it's almost like there's more. I don't know if I'm more attuned to them or if there's more trains running with the economy up. But that's still moving forward. When Denny gets the added signatures here, hopefully that buttons things up as far as anything that the communities involved in that quiet zone need to do. There's also, then you'll see the item E there under new business. This was the tax incremental financing that the Lorraine County Board of Commissioners had proposed for the sandstone development. Georgianne, can you bring up Exhibit 1 on that, please, on the screen? Okay, this is just a schematic here for the sandstone development. Just as a quick review, this is a 264-acre development. The area to your left, which is going to the west along 58, that's the 40-acre commercial area. The area to the north that has the hatch marks going from the right to the lower, that 30-acre site is what's termed the Redwood development. That will be 210 age-targeted single-family townhomes. The other area that's hatch marked there, that's roughly 190 some acres. That will be 459 detached single-family homes and open space and detention ponds. There will be a total right now, the estimate is 672 living units. And as the trustees recall, when we went through a settlement agreement with the developer in the courts, the township had agreed that we would not contest a 10-year 75% TIF. Well, that TIF at 10 years 75% meant that 75% of the property taxes would be redirected, so that property owners would still pay the property tax, but the Board of County Commissioners would control that revenue fund, and they were going to use that fund for various items to support this development. Specifically, they were talking about the sanitary sewers and hydrants and whatnot. And when the county got a hold of this and they first sent it to the township, they were looking at a much larger TIF, and essentially there wouldn't have been any funds available to the township, and so the township said no to the county's proposed 100% TIF for 30 years. And that is on your agenda. That was resolution number 9722, so it was sometime back in September when we were presented with that proposal. Since then, there's been multiple discussions between Amherst Exempted Village School District. This is fully within the Amherst Exempted Village School District, in the county, legal representatives for all entities, The school did hire a financial consultant also to run the numbers on this, which was helpful. And I think as a result, what you're going to see is we've got a compromise here that's acceptable to all parties, and as anything, nothing's perfect here. But what the schools in the township, and you guys saw this, and a lot of this discussion occurred in executive session, which is proper and authorized. Georgianne, can you bring up first item 2? Okay, this is and you've got a copy of this in your packet, or should also, but what we did when we first met with the schools in detail, this would have been back in September of 2022, is we did a rough cut of what the impact on the schools, because obviously the schools were concerned any development is bringing additional students, which is additional cost on the schools, and they need to be able to plan for that in terms of staffing and physical structure, that they can handle that. Well, this particular document, which is displayed right now, is showing that the current real estate taxes that the school district collects today is approximately $17.7 million. And the estimated enrollment in 2022 was just a little over 3,500 students. So if you looked at that on a per student basis, that's a collection of $5,018 per student. Georgianne has the pointer there showing that. So now what's going to be the impact with this new development? Well, if you follow down the spreadsheet, you see the commercial area of roughly 40 acres. Well, it's difficult. We've received where the developer had presented us with what their forecast is of what they're going to put in that commercial development, but we all know that can change based on the market. But the developer used, which was the same developer for the Deerfield and Lighthouse Village commercial centers, is they looked at what that real estate value is on a per acre basis, and that's where they came up with the total value there, an estimated value of $32 million. And if you move to the right, you can see on average, this is based on Lorraine County Auditor for commercial real estate in this area is about 2.1%. The roughly 62 and 3/8% of the real estate taxes go to Amherst exempted village schools. So if there were no TIF, no reduction, the commercial area would provide the schools with additional funding of $419,000. If you keep moving, obviously a commercial area, there's no residents there, so there'll be no students there. You keep moving along, you can see the township's percentage is roughly 9.3%. So for the township from the commercial area, the forecast is a little over $62,000 annually. Again, that's assuming no TIF. If we drop down the next row, you see the Redwood development. This is the single-family townhomes, but this is age-targeted. Age-targeted doesn't mean the same as age-restricted. There can be students in here. But with those 210 homes, that $150,000 is probably low, but that's what was used for the estimate. You can see that the total estimated value improvement will be $31,500. And I should correct, this is improvement over the existing property value. Now, this shows a rate of 1.7. We've since then, in working with the auditor, is that actually, since those will be rentals, that will be taxed at a commercial rate. So it'll actually be a little bit higher, but I didn't change this spreadsheet from what was originally presented to the schools. So for the schools, it'd be about $334,000 in real estate taxes with no TIF. And based on what the Redwood developers presented to us, based on their existing developments they have, there are 0.07 students per unit. So at 210 units, that would mean an increase of just under 15 students in Amherst schools. Obviously, that can be at varying ages. For the township's percentage, that would be roughly 55,000 annually coming to the township. The next two rows, the reason this is split for the balance of the single-family detached homes is you can see that the total value for the age-restricted area that K-Hove is going to build would be about $85.5 million, and the Ryan homes, which obviously there's no age restriction, would be $63 million. And applying those same rates, the schools would get $906,000 for the age-restricted area, $668,000 for the area that's open to students. Well, based on the current population per home, this you can get right from the census is 0.37 school-age children, so that'll add almost 72 students to the schools. Then we also have those three larger lots that front Oberlin Road, so that'll add another student there. So you're seeing a total of almost 88 additional students in Amherst schools, and realize this is across from kindergarten through the senior year or 12th grade. I'm not going to go through the details there for the township as far as the totals, but you guys can see them displayed there. So what does this mean? Well, you can see that the total estimated collection by the schools, assuming no TIFs in place, is roughly $2.3 million. Divide that by the 87.5 students that are projected to come out of this development. That shows a projection of receiving almost $27,000 per student. Realize for benchmark comparison, Amherst Schools currently receives about $5,000 per student. So you're talking about, on a per student basis, receiving 5 times the amount you receive from the general real estate area within the Amherst Exempted Village School District. Now, when this was prepared, realize this was assuming a 10-year 75% TIF, which is what was in the settlement agreement. Well, if you took 75% of those real estate tax away, now the schools are only receiving $6,600. So still higher than what they're receiving, but, you know, not something someone's going to jump up and down with. So that's where the first meeting that included the county, the schools, the township, the developer, all in one room, some selected members from the Board of Education. They obviously couldn't have their full board there without calling a meeting, just to try and get everybody on the same page and see, you know, what is this animal and what are people agreeable to. Realize the 10-year 75% if the county chose that direction, neither the township nor the schools have any say in that. It would be just like the Hampshire Farms TIF. The county can do it without our say. So even though we said in the settlement agreement we wouldn't contest it, really wasn't something that we were losing, because we knew it didn't matter if we said we contested anyway. There's nothing we can do about it if the county decided to do that. But as a result of that, Georgianne, can you bring up number 3? Is the schools in the township put together a list of 6 items that they wanted to see in this TIF, expecting to go through, and also recognizing our negotiating position was the county could always fall back to the 10-year 75%. The county, as they shared with us, they were concerned with that 10-year 75% if they would earn enough money to pay the infrastructure, because they have to set a date for the start of the TIF, and then once that starts in 10 years, it's over. Well, it's, you know, the projection as far as the sequence in this construction, if you were off by a little bit, you went ahead and you put out those bonds, you put in the infrastructure, and you can't begin the homes in the commercial area till the infrastructure's there. and now you're incurring the debt and finance cost, and if things got delayed, they're collecting on a lower amount going forward. So the county wanted a longer-term TIF. They also wanted a higher percentage, but the schools in the township, and I know you guys have heard this before, we weren't willing to go beyond 20 years. And with the 20 years, we wanted to look at also a lower rate, which makes it easier for all of us to plan, both the schools and the township. And the county provided a whole slew of different scenarios and different rates, different times, different assumptions as far as build out. I mean, we had spreadsheets coming out of our ears on this. I think it's at that time that the schools then hired a financial consultant to look at this. But what we zeroed in on is we got a list, and I think, Georgiana, if you scroll down a little bit further, is the spreadsheet on here? Keep going. Yeah, okay, you can stop right there. We're not going to go through item by item here, but this spreadsheet listed the items that we'd be agreeable to fund, which is about $8.5 million. What that's going to include is that would be that spline road. If you can go back to the schematic diagram of the development, which is number 1. Okay, show where the spline road is that interconnects from Oberlin Road and meanders through over to 58. And with that spline road, there is no frontage construction on there, and that's deliberate. There's also traffic calming areas in there to try and minimize physical injuries to individuals and loss of property due to motor vehicle accidents. But the TIF is going to cover that. It's going to cover the supporting infrastructure such as the sanitary sewers and the stormwater management, the potential for turning lanes on Oberlin Road and 58, but more specifically, Oberlin Road was one of the items the township said we absolutely have to do. We most likely are going to have reduction in the speed limit also, but we needed something in there to avoid those, not only the crossover turning type traffic, but the rear end collisions at those main intersections, which will be a new intersection. There also is a multi-purpose path that'll follow that spline road in there as far as moving the individuals, personnel along there and giving something not only is good for this development, but hopefully it will work for development surrounding this. Long term, the hope is that that will interconnect with the long-term plan of having that pathway all along the Lakeshore Railway, taking it from Amherst Township all the way down to Wellington area. So with the, can you go back to Exhibit 3? Yeah, Exhibit 3, yep, keep going. Okay, so there were 6 specific items that the schools in the township had requested from the county. One, we weren't going to approve any TIF unless we could see that TIF generated enough to cover the projected cost of $8.5 million for these various items. We also said we don't want this TIF going any longer than the 20 years, and we wanted to determine what that percentage is, and that's where number 2, we got all these different variables coming forward. We also wanted, upon termination of the TIF, that as opposed to the money going into the county's general fund, that revenue would be returned to the township and the schools. And we actually were looking at going back to all the different taxing entities in proportion to what they normally would receive on their levies. We wondered if there was any additional revenue, like say you had a new levy, replacement levy, or a renewal with an increase, that 100% of that went to the taxing authority. So we had given all these items to the county, and the result is it doesn't look exactly like this in the TIF agreement, but you'll see, the trustees are going to see, need to make a decision on here, that it's kind of meeting the intent here. Georgianne, can you bring up Exhibit 4, please? Okay, this exhibit now is including some of the numbers working with the Amherst Exempted Village School District financial consultant. So now if you look at the very top, it's now showing, and these totals are very similar to what we ran through before, the Redwood development, roughly $31.5 million, the residential area, just under $31.5 million, the residential, just under $150 million. So if there was no TIF, the schools would receive roughly $2.2 million. This is a much more detailed and finer estimate than those rough estimates I showed you before with the percentage based on the auditor's website. You can see over here the schools actually use what their specific millage rates were. They were still looking at that time, okay, what's this look like as far as 75% in different areas, but that's going to go by the wayside. And then you'll see down at the bottom in yellow is this will show what the schools, the township, the county, JVS, what we would receive if there were no TIF. So you could see with no TIF is the county would receive roughly $3.5 million in real estate taxes, Amherst Exempted Village School about $2.2 million, JVS about $129,000, Amherst Township about $350,000, and when we look at that based on what the total this TIF would provide, what does that leave for infrastructure? About $822,000. Now you got to keep that number in the back of your head. And then for 30 years total cost, this includes 30 years as far as all this going on. It's just 30 times that. You'll see you've got over $25 million in collection. But remember that $822,000 annual amount received in real estate taxes other than the schools and the county and the township. Okay, can you bring up Exhibit 5, Georgianne? Okay, what this is doing is the financial consultant for the schools did a much more detailed comparison of what it would take to, what the real costs are going to be for that $8.5 million in infrastructure. And the top portion of this spreadsheet is knowing that notes are going to have to be sold in anticipation of this eventually being bonded. And those notes would also include the capitalized interest that's occurring during the initial years when there's very little real estate taxes being collected because the development is just starting. So we've got a current base rate in there that we collect real estate taxes on now, but it's very low since there's very little structure in there. A lot of that area is old apple orchards that aren't being used anymore and some other fallow farmland, and there are productive farmlands in that area today. So breaking this up, if we recall, and if you recall the schematic that was up there of the development, is it looks like the spline road is going to be constructed in 2 phases. Well, that first phase of the spline road is split up into 2 separate notes of $2.4 million each. And you see the first one taken out in 2023 and the second one taken out in 2024. And based on an expected rate of 3.5%, is it determines, so it can capitalize the interest, what is the county looking at in terms of real cost. So the first half of the spline road you can see by 2027, we're looking at $5.5 million. They'd be into this, what they owe on these notes. The second half of that spine road, going all the way over to 58, very similar, but those notes would be sold at $1.93 million. So that adds up an additional, by 2028, $4.3 million. So you see, once those notes are converted to bonds, is in 2027, you'll have a $5.5 million that you have to cover in debt. And for the western half of the spline road, $4.3 million. So assuming that you're paying this out at 3% over a 20-year period, you get what your estimated payment is, and you see those estimated payments all the way over to the right in that second block on the worksheet. So you then move down to the bottom, and you see when we get into 2029, so we're talking 6 years from now, you're expecting the majority of this residential area to be built out. And the county's TIF proposal, which they haven't given us the final one yet, but I expect it's going to be very similar to the one that the township turned down before, is they set the initiation of the TIF to be after the improvement of a certain amount. So like the Redwood, they set it at, once there's $30 million improvement, and they estimate when it's all done it'll be 31 and a half. So they're looking at almost all 210 homes are there. That's going to be the start of their TIF. So they're estimating that to begin around 2028. Well, you can see their payment, it slides in. It starts out at the first payment is roughly $474,000, but from that point forward, you're looking at an annual payment about $850,000. Now remember, I said keep in mind that $821,983 or $822,000. That's what would be generated if the schools and the township received 100% of their real estate, said, go ahead and put on 100% 30-year TIF, but let the schools and the township receive all the funds that they normally would have received, and we'll go ahead and approve that. Well, you're still short. Based on this projection, you know, you're short by about $28,000 a year, so that's obviously not going to work. And then, since all of these are estimates and projections, you know, the county didn't 100% agree with what the financial consultant says, but they know they're in the ballpark. So now you know what we expect the financing to be for the infrastructure improvements that we've all zeroed in that we'll agree to, and for this development. So that brings us down to how did the desires of the schools and the township get included into the TIF compensation agreement that is acceptable? Well, Georgianne, can you bring up the Amherst Township resolution? And it's not numbered, but I know you've got it there. Okay. Just to get this on the floor, is I'm going to make a motion for approval of a tax incremental financing exemption pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.78 in the Township Compensation Agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Lorain County, Ohio, executed in connection with the development of certain properties in the Township of Amherst, commonly referred to as the Sandstone Development. I'm not going to go through all these whereases here, but the Amherst Township Board of Trustees acknowledges receipt on January 25th, 2023 of a notice of a proposed incentive district, the TIF term and TIF exemptions. The Amherst Township Board of Trustees hereby authorizes, approves, and ratifies the Township Compensation Agreement between the Lorain County Commissioners and the Board. And the Board hereby, and this is key, the board hereby waives any further notice of the proposed exemptions applicable to the TIF resolution in the incentive district as provided under revised code 5709.78 and revised code 5709.83, any right to approve the exemptions from taxation with regards to the incentive district. Realize if we don't approve or waive that notice, there's a 45-day notice indicated in the statute. Obviously, we could leave that in there. It just makes it a little more cumbersome for the county in trying to get this done. At this point in time, the county's anticipating sometime after April 5th that they will go ahead and pass their resolutions with the TIF resolutions that the schools and the township have agreed to. But since the schools already approved their agreement, which is pretty much the same as the township, the county may actually get this done sooner if the Amherst Township Board of Trustees approves this TIF. Georgianne, could you scroll down through the compensation agreement to section 4? It's listed as page 9 on the pagination there. Okay, this is going, though there's a lot of words in here and there's been several attorneys involved in drafting this and adjusting it. This is probably the section that people are most interested in. And in section 4, this is the application of the service payments derived from the incentive district by the county. Realize the county will collect all the real estate taxes, and there will be separate revenue funds in for each of these 2 TIF districts. From that revenue fund this gives the order and how things are going to be paid and who gets paid. So the first payment is going to go to the, and I see someone from the county is contacting me, probably wants to know what's going on with this TIF. Give me a call. So I'm sure that's what it is, but I think we'll call afterwards.
Where's that?
In section 4, it's, David, the resolution in your packet.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for you.
Well, wait till we get through this.
Okay, in section 4, you'll see that first, any payments go to the Amherst Village School District and the Lorraine County Joint Vocational School. Payments to the school district an amount equal to the sum required pursuant to a separate compensation agreement entered into between the county and the school district. And then it mentions payment to JVS. Essentially, that section revised code, whatever agreement Amherst Exempted Village School District agreed to, JVS gets the same thing. So they're not a party to the agreement directly, but essentially they get whatever Amherst Exempted Village Schools agreed to. And what the schools have agreed to is a 30-year 35% TIF. So 35% of the real estate tax, just a little over a third, would go into this revenue fund. The balance, 65%, would go to the schools. And remember those funds we went to, that's going to be much better. It's much higher than what the schools collect on a per student basis even today if this development is successful and meets the current projections. The second, with respect to any increased assessed value for this district, for payment years 1 through 20 would go to Amherst Township. The reason, this is a key, this was one of the changes, the county wanted a 30-year, remember they started 30-year, 100%. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to collect these funds, but the schools and the township are only going to be part of this TIF for 20 years. So it's a 30-year TIF, but our involvement is only 20 years that any of the property taxes that are paid by these property owners would be redirected to the county to pay for the infrastructure and also pay out to the schools in the township. In payment years 21 through 30 is 100% of the annual amount the township would have received is coming to the township. So come that 21st year, we're going to receive what we would receive had there not been a TIF, and so will the schools. Third, any funds left after you make the payments to the schools and the township out of that revenue fund would go to the county to pay for the debt service they've got now for the infrastructure they put in. Well, then there's this fourth part. This is where in this fourth part, it talks about these TIF reserve funds. Realize there's going to be 2 reserve funds because the statute mandates you have a separate fund for each TIF. The TIF can't exceed 300 acres, and because this development's going to occur in phases, there was one set up for the Redwood development, another one for the detached single-family homes. Well, the way the school and the township will receive their funding back as far as if there is a renewal with increase, replacement levy, or new levy is going to be covered by the fourth item. The projections we saw is that there's going to be plenty of money there to cover the cost, and I've shown you those details on the spreadsheets already, if you went beyond the 10 years. And knowing that the way the statute's written, unless we include something in the TIF agreement, that would go back to the county's general fund at the termination of the TIF. So what's going to happen now, that reserve fund cannot exceed 1.5 times of the annual debt service. Remember that annual debt service based on the notes or on the bonds that'll be sent out will be about $850,000 a year. So when you take that excess, it's going to be returned back to the township and the school, so you'll be getting your tax money back. So if you have an increase, you're also getting it back in the millage. That will come back to the township and the schools as if we normally would have gotten it. So it's just a different way of addressing this. We originally wanted any new or replacement levy that we just get 100%. I know that the attorney for the county was somewhat concerned with that because putting this 1.5%, they referred to it as a clawback. You're giving us the money that we should be receiving. Is that's one new wrinkle that they haven't had in TIFs before that our auditor is going to have to deal with. To put in another one that, hey, now you got to look at new and replacement levies or renewal with increase and also carve that out 100%. He thought that would be right for heirs. I'm not so certain I agree with that because the statute was also changed that anything after 2006, there are certain levies, specifically, usually they're health and human service type levies, that the auditor's got to do that today. So that was a change in the statute. All we were doing was asking also for the schools in the township when we have levies, whether that's fire, EMS, roads, lighting, whatever, parks, whatever it's going to be, that it get returned. But evidently they thought that'd be a complication. So this was a concession. We didn't get everything we wanted, but I think it's a pretty good deal, and I appreciate a lot of the effort that the schools put in putting this together also, which benefits the township. Having them as our partner was very helpful and beneficial. They were able to bring some professional resources to the table that had we done that as a percentage of our budget would have been huge, and I don't think any of us were willing to spend that kind of money. So those are the key items in here. I mean, I don't know if we want to go point to point. I hope you guys read this ahead of time since I had emailed this all out to you so you could be prepared for the meeting. So with that, I don't recall, did we get a second on that motion?
No.
Can I have
I
a,
will second the motion.
okay, all right. Now we'll be open for discussion. David, you said you had a question?
In a moment here, let me see what we got here. Okay, on your list, or part of that $8.4 million, you're looking at, and I don't recall this, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is the sanitary and water deal.
Uh-huh.
There's like 1.8 million, almost 1.9 million in sanitary and water for this, for that, supposedly for the Spine Road. I'm a little bit confused on that, and I suppose it's been there all along, sitting in plain daylight. Now all of a sudden I'm looking here at the end, and why is it, why are we putting 1.9 million into sewers for this project? Wouldn't the developer be paying for that?
Well, I guess any of this, my preference would be we not do any of it, David. Right? But we have a settlement agreement that we work through the courts, and it currently says that we won't resist, which we know we can't, a 10-year 75%, and that was included in there. All that negotiation was with the county ahead of time. And the development can't occur without those sewers. I mean, they have to be there. And so this isn't some, that negotiation, that developer's agreement was done with the county. That's the reality. So the question is, do we say, if we say no, well, then we're back to 10 years, 75%. Now, the way I see it in managing money, I'd much rather have 65% of the improvement come to the township versus 25% over those 10 years.
Why are sewers being tipped?
Again, that agreement was with the county. This is the same thing they did at Hampshire Farms. Remember?
But I think with Hampshire Farms, it was on their sewers along Oberlin Road.
No, they also included the sewers within the development. So this is no different than what was done there. You know, I prefer we never have TIFs.
Okay.
I mean, that's my preference, but the reality is they exist. And as I've gone over with the statute with you in the past, is there's very little say we have in this. If you look at the statute for the township, if we wanted to hold firm, you know, we said no to the first one. If we dug our heels in and we didn't have the schools as a partner, if you read the statute, essentially the county could say, well, okay, thank you, but we're going to do what we want. I can jump up and down and scream and stomp my feet, but it's not going to get us anywhere. So we tried to work out the best arrangement we could with the funding on this. Ultimately, from what we can see with this, is the township's not going to be in a loss position. We're actually going to receive more in revenue than we're going to have going out in cost. We're not going to be, if you look at the balance for the schools, they're going to be in an even better position because of the anticipated low burden and large revenue going to the schools. You know, the township, we're still going to have between the stormwater, the EMS, the fire, you know, the demands it's going to put on our other services, we're going to see that. We know it. But let's look at what we negotiate in the benefits. In Redwood, who's responsible in the long term for the roadway?
The county.
No.
Redwood? The
Redwood,
private streets.
homeowners association, it's private
Homeowners.
street. Who's
That's
responsible
right.
for the storm sewer?
Homeowners.
Homeowners association, not us. That was part of the settlement agreement, that if it was going to be age-targeted rental, that it would be private streets and sewers. We were trying to get that up front to guarantee, but, you know, when you're working those negotiations, nobody gets everything they wanted in there. We're the ones demanding the turn lanes for safety on Oberlin Road. There's a reason for that, is every time there's a motor vehicle accident, not only do you have injury to personnel and injury to, or damage to their property, there's also a cost. Who pays for EMS and fire? Well, essentially our property owners do, but we're the ones that manage that. So we get the turn lane in there, so that reduces. One of the other things we negotiated, who's responsible for that spline road in the long term? Remember, David, the negotiation?
The county.
The county. So now you've got over a mile of roadway that Kevin, you just heard Kevin talking about pothole patching he's got here. We went through chip and seal for Broadway, Taylor, and Tenney versus $130,000 to resurface. That's not us now, that's the county is going to be responsible for that. And this is another key term, long term, when that roadway interconnects 58 and Oberlin Road, the county engineer has agreed they will take over responsibility for all the maintenance on Oberlin Road. So we may have an agreement we've talked about, possibly we may drop the plow and put on salt, we may have the county engineer pay for the materials itself based on a per mile. The reason we do that, again, for the safety of the public so that they aren't having accidents, since we've got to go by that road anyway, let's get it done, especially in the early mornings when people are going to work and the schools are out. But signage, ditching, there's probably going to be minimal roadside mowing anymore, patching, resurfacing. You know how hard that is. We're down to now almost 5 different sections we do Oberlin Road in just to get it resurfaced. We won't be doing that anymore. So again, there's benefits here, but getting into that detail, I don't know what to say other than the counties already had signed on to that. So our thing is looking at the financials, what's the best deal we can cut? Okay?
I'm just not crazy about the water and the sewer on that.
Well, I'm not either, but that's where it is. I mean, who's responsible for all the detention ponds? You know, we put in there in the settlement agreement, the homeowners, and yet we increased that well beyond what would have been required for the reason, knowing this development just really had to capture any additional water they'd shed based on the development. We requested, no, we want additional water capacity and being able to retain that at a slower release. And some of that is because we know we have issues today with water, so we're trying to correct those sins from the past that occur. And then as we have every individual home that splits off, like right now along Oberlin Road, Sam talked about the ones on Fowl Road, other than sediment control, there's no stormwater management there. There's no set ponds for settling or holding that water back. So we're using this development to try and keep all that water from running further, and as you're aware, going through the details, instead of all this water going over into the Batten House ditch and making a long tour through the township to eventually get up to the east branch of Beaver Creek, the water is being captured, it moves to the east, but then it gets moved in a detention pond and redirected back to the west, so it gets a shorter distance going into the larger capacity portion of the east branch of Beaver Creek. All right?
Well, we have a first and second on the floor.
Are there any other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, Kevin, I don't know if you have anything. I mean, you're going to have a lot of work in this, obviously, in the future, but you'll have time. All right, then, roll call, Chris?
Lynch?
Yes?
Abraham?
Yes.
Urick?
No.
And that number, Chris?
Is 2623.
And we'll, as I mentioned, you've got 2 copies there, so what we'll do is sign those before we leave tonight on both of them, and that way you'll have a certified copy to get to the county, and it might be best even to scan the whole thing with all the signatures. Obviously, that doesn't have to be done tonight because there's a lot of paper in this, quite a bit of paper. My agenda. 6:24. Okay, we probably will have, next week, we've got to determine the One Ohio opioid settlement. Is Chris received some additional information? I think that was Friday. And with all the other information to get together for tonight's meeting, it might not seem like a whole lot of resolutions, but trust me, it was a lot of time. I didn't have time to even consider putting a resolution together on that. So I'm going to look at it, see if we even need a separate resolution. Essentially, there's been a settlement with many more pharmacies and retailers that were providing the opioids to individuals and marketing that with the various states, and Ohio's obviously getting their share, and that moves down to the local governments, including Amherst Township. And so based on a previous resolution we passed to enter into this, Chris has some electronic documents they sent to her through DocuSign that, I can only sign down here. If it's something that our existing resolution authorizes signature, we'll go ahead and sign it, but we'll probably have a refreshed resolution that identifies all these additional entities that have settled in terms of this particular case. So that'll probably be at the next meeting. Our next regular meeting is going to be on Tuesday, February 28th. I don't know, Kevin, if you have a need, you or Linda, for a work session. No audience concerns. Any need for an executive session? Is there any other business? If not, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move. Second.
Abraham,
Yes.
Euring,
Yes.
Lynch.